Welcome to the Stronghold Podcast, where we explore capability and truth. I'm your host, Dave Barton, and today, in episode 10, Goliath, we'll tackle a topic that challenges some deeply ingrained misconceptions, especially among Christians. The idea that weakness and submissiveness are virtues. We're diving into a story we all know, but maybe haven't fully understood. The story of David and Goliath. Let's start with a foundational verse from Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. This verse is a message from God to the people of Judah about how to restore their relationship with God and change their ways. It describes the good that God wants from people and community, including bringing justice to those who are wronged, stopping the powerful from oppressing the powerless, relieving the oppressed, caring for the fatherless, and pleading for the widow. This is my mantra, and my life and mission served reflected. Here's the word I want to emphasize today. Defend. Defending the oppressed, standing for justice, these are virtuous actions. But how can we defend anything if we choose weakness over capability? If we willingly disarm ourselves physically, mentally, or spiritually, we surrender ground to the evil in the world. There's a famous exchange in an interview between John Stossel and Jordan Peterson as they discuss capability and the idea men need to be dangerous. Stossel's approach is cautious on violence, or the idea of being dangerous. He makes a jump when he says to Peterson, there's a big difference between letting people do something for themselves and saying men should be dangerous. That implies I should be ready to threaten someone, to hurt somebody. He approaches capability in being dangerous as the bully or the aggressor. But Peterson then makes the distinction that is critical. He says, no, you should be capable of it, but that doesn't mean you should use it. There's nothing to you otherwise. Like, if you're not a formidable force, there's no morality in your self-control. If you're incapable of violence, not being violent isn't a virtue. Peterson elaborates further in saying, I'm harmless, therefore I'm good. It's like, no, that isn't how it works. That isn't how it works at all. If you're harmless, you're just weak. And if you're weak, you're not going to be good. You can't be. Because it takes strength to be good. That's where the distinction between weakness and controlled strength comes in. Weakness is not goodness. It's through capability, tempered with self-control, that we truly embody virtue. This is all about being capable, not about being ready to threaten someone, but being a threat to someone, bad someone's, that would do harm if given free roam. This brings us to 1 Samuel 17 and the story of David and Goliath. This isn't just a Sunday school tale. It's a blueprint for living with purpose and strength. Picture this. The Valley of Elah, a fertile battleground roughly 15 miles southwest of Jerusalem. Two armies are camped on opposing hills. The Israelites on one, led by King Saul. On the other, the Philistines, led by their champion Goliath. This valley becomes a stage for a duel that would decide the fate of nations. Goliath, standing over 9 feet tall and covered in heavy armor, taunts the Israelites for 40 days, challenging any one of them to fight him. His size, strength, and weaponry make him an unstoppable force. To the Israelites, Goliath represents fear, domination, and inevitable defeat. Now enter David, a young shepherd. No armor, no sword, just a sling and a few stones, and unwavering faith in God. David's brothers and King Saul tell him he's foolish to even consider taking on Goliath. But David's response is rooted in truth. God delivered him from the jaws of lions and bears as a shepherd. Surely he will deliver him now. In the battle, with one well-aimed stone, David slays Goliath. The Philistines scatter, and the Israelites claim victory. The lesson here? Some would say we should pray for Goliath. But if God calls us to slay giants, we need to grab our sling and stones. This story isn't just about courage. It's about capability, preparation, and faith. David wasn't weak. He wasn't reckless. He was prepared. As a shepherd, he had honed his skills with a sling. His faith gave him purpose, and his training gave him means to act. But let's address a common objection. Doesn't the Bible teach peace? Didn't Jesus preach love and turning the other cheek? Yes. Jesus calls us to be peacemakers. Matthew 5:5 says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." But there's misunderstanding in this verse, and it's the word meek. In biblical Greek, meek or praeus does not imply weakness or passivity. Instead, it refers to strength under control, humility, and gentleness. This kind of meekness involves a calm and disciplined spirit, one that is not easily provoked to anger or revenge, but rather possesses self-restraint. It's a quality that combines humility and strength, where an individual has power but chooses to act with patience and forbearance. The image here is keeping one's sword sheathed, capable of wielding it strongly, but making the disciplined choice to keep one's power sheathed or under control, rather than lashing out or using force impulsively. Let me bring this closer to home for all of us. In today's world, we often confuse comfort with virtue. It's easier to preach peace and turn from violence when you've outsourced your capability and defense to others, police, military, or government officials. But as Orwell reminds us, those who abhor violence can do so only because others are committing violence on their behalf. Weakness doesn't lead to peace. It leads to oppression. Just look at the past few years. We've seen what happens when weak leaders wield power. They either crumble or use that power to crush others. They turn into tyrants and silence truth. To again quote Jordan Peterson, "If you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of." After COVID, we don't have to wonder any longer. We've seen the mask come off the weak men and women across the world who call themselves leaders. You don't remember? Do you remember hearing this? Quote, "We are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for the unvaccinated. For themselves, their families, and the hospitals they'll soon overwhelm." Author Jocelyn Murray wrote, "Weak men cannot handle power. It will either crush them or they will use it to crush others." The truly virtuous, the ones capable of defending justice, protecting the vulnerable, and standing firm in the face of evil, are those who are monsters, capable of great violence, but choose and are disciplined to keep it controlled. They choose their swords sheathed until facing evil. I know men and women who are extremely capable of violence. They have committed extreme violence. And they are often the most peaceful and loving people I know. So what does this mean for us? Like David, we need to prepare. We must just develop our capabilities. Whether through physical strength, intellectual growth, or spiritual discipline, We need to stand ready to defend what's good and true, not because we seek conflict, but because we refuse to let evil have free rein. The only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. We've all heard that. But I would take that further and say good men who are capable, trained, disciplined, and understand that violence has a place in life. I know many may listen to this episode and hear the emphasis on the physical. But please know that capabilities include physical strength, intellectual growth, and spiritual discipline. They all flow into each other, and one left unattended weakens the others. Remember, God didn't choose David because he was weak. He chose him because he was faithful, capable, and willing to act. After slaying Goliath, David remained beloved in the eyes of God. I will remain faithful, seek capability, and not only be willing to act, but exude strength. I will not willingly disarm myself physically, mentally, or spiritually, and surrender God or surrender ground to evil in the world. I will defend. Defending those who cannot defend themselves is virtuous, but if I choose weakness over capability, I cede ground to the evil in the world. Amidst my earthly being, there is evil, greed, envy, lust, sloth, gluttony, and wrath. Instead of ridding myself of these evils, I choose to, as Jordan Peterson said, transmute them or change them in form, appearance, and nature. By doing this, I can truly defend because I can recognize evil. I can meet evil with violence and resistance, my presence radiating implicit potential for havoc. I know what some may be saying, that this is a fool's errand, and that at my age and capability I cannot defeat all evil. And I am certainly not able to physically best all. That's not the point. Some may have seen the scene in Game of Thrones from the Battle of Bastards, as a hero, Jon Snow's brother, Rickon Stark, prisoner to the truly evil to the core Ramsay, is released to run to Jon across a desolate battlefield. Just as he reaches Jon, Ramsay drives an arrow through his heart, killing him in front of Jon. It is at this point Jon has a choice: turn away or turn towards the fight. Victory was not his intention, and not likely. Virtue was his command. On horseback and solo, Jon charges forward, outpacing the range of the first archers. Resolute, determined, and committed, the second wave of archers catches Jon's horse, and he's thrown off. Now left on a battlefield alone, with his forces trying to catch up. As Ramsay commands his cavalry to charge Jon and mow him down, Jon once again stares down death to defend his fallen brother, unsheathing his broadsword and holding ground. This is the point. And it is scenes like this that ignite a primal purpose inside the hearts and minds of men. I will learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. This is not to be left to fairy tales. This is not lost from our society to historic battles gone by. This is virtue, honor, and calling. It is more required than ever, and it is ready to be lit ablaze inside all of us. Once again, I will say, some would have me pray for Goliath and bend my knees to the Philistines of life. But if God says, slay some giants, I'm grabbing my sling and stones. So what giants are you facing? What battles are you avoiding because they seem insurmountable? Today I challenge you to take up your sling and stones. Develop your capabilities. Stand firm in truth. And face your Goliath. Thank you for joining me and listening into the Stronghold Podcast.